Hello and good evening. Today is Wednesday, March 21st, and this is the Fertility Family Live. I'm your hostess, Kania Kennedy, and I'm super happy to be here because Fertility Family is our opportunity to discuss what does it look like to be on the path to parenthood when it's sometimes a little non-traditional, perhaps sometimes having little challenges, and then just sometimes because you want to really take the time to plan and develop and go into it fully prepared and optimizing your chances to have a happy, successful baby and have the transition into the phase of becoming a parent be easy and graceful and fun. So, whatever the reason you join us, we're certainly happy to have you here watching the Fertility Family, whether it's live or on the replay. Before we get into our awesome presenter and special guest today, I'm going to share a little bit about the Fertility Family, what you can expect, and just some great developments that have been happening in the last couple of weeks. All right, let's get into that. So yeah, we're at the Fertility Family Live. Yay! Every week we come together and we have a wonderful person inside of the area of natural childbirth and pregnancy, as well as family planning and all sorts of things. So what we cover in the group is pretty expansive. But that's one of the reasons I like it, because I'm on a journey to parenthood and I like to cover all my bases if I can. With that being said, we like to add new content to the Fertility Family. So one of the things that just got added is our pregnancy timeline. So the team has been working on this pregnancy timeline. It's the checklist to have a happy, healthy conception, pregnancy, and birth. And it's pretty awesome because it kind of exemplifies what the Fertility Family is all about. The idea with this is to start at least a year out from when you are in the mindset of, okay, I am ready to become a parent. And what are the things that you want to do to get yourself prepared? So we start a year out from conception and take you all the way through the first 3 or 4 months. And not going to say it has everything, but I feel like it's a pretty robust document and it's a growing organic document. So as things pop up, we'll certainly add more, but I encourage you to visit fertilityfam.com and check it out. It's something that it is available to you, whether you're a member officially of the group or not. I think it's just great information to have out there. And so we share it freely. So make sure you go and download that. It's pretty awesome. And then the next thing we have inside of the Fertility Family group is foods that make you fertile. So this is some more research that I was doing. So I am a holistic wellness practitioner and a person who practices living holistically as well. And I know that, food is definitely our medicine and has an impact on all aspects of our life. So I got curious about foods and fertility. And what I like about this document is, as I was researching it, one of the great resources I found, and everything is referenced in the document, so if you want more information, you can find it, was this actually was taking us through different foods during different periods of ovulation. So as we go through our entire cycle, what we can be eating at different times. And so I thought that was pretty awesome. And so that's inside of that document. Now, that is inside our Fertility Family group. And so, of course, I invite you to join the Fertility Family officially so you have access to that. And then also in the group, resources for those who are solo parenting or perhaps using donor sperm. That's a pretty intense pathway to parenthood. If you're someone as a couple who might be having challenges conceiving, and you find the issue might have to do with the sperm. Well, one thing, of course, you're reading our reference text, the Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, and you're taking the steps that Dr. Julissa outlines for us to see if that could make a difference. But ultimately, maybe there's someone who is not on that journey, or you're like me and you don't have a partner. And so you're going to be using donor sperm. So I've begun researching, okay, what is that process like? That's also an organic document that's inside of the group, but it's available for people who are on that journey as well. And then I'm pleased to announce our awesome holistic feminine health starter kit, your honeypot, as I like to call our female reproductive system. We want it to be happy and healthy. And one of the ways we can do that is by nourishing it. And inside of this kit, these are just some of the tools that I have begun using that have been recommended to me as I continue, again, to explore this journey about women's health. In general, I'm about health and feminine health, and fertility is kind of a subset of that. This is a very general kit, meaning if you're someone who has a cycle and you're using sanitary napkins, we recommend they be non-toxic. And the Female Comfort Herbal Blend is something I have found has made a difference for me inside of my my cycle. After taking it, I found my cycle length has decreased, and then most of the discomfort, any that I was experiencing, mine was never too severe, but it's pretty much subsided. We will talk about some changes I've been experiencing in my body in the last couple of months later on in the talk today. But in general, for the past year and a half, since I've incorporated the herbal pads and the female comfort, I can tell you it's been a wonderful, wonderful change. And any of my clients who've also done that are just kind of amazed by how easy breezy their cycle can be when their body has what it needs. I love our Changes Women's Health Essential Oil Blend because essential oils is very powerful plant medicine and it has an immediate impact. So something that you can massage into your abdomen and you can use to have an immediate impact on your change. And that's for women who may be having their cycle, or even particularly women who may be going through the life change, also known as menopause. So it's very powerful. And then Nature's Prenatal Vitamin. It was recommended to me that if you have a cycle, you should take a prenatal and not wait until you just want to get pregnant. But of course, if you're on the pathway to pregnancy, you definitely want to be taking a prenatal vitamin. So that's the Holistic Feminine Health Starter Kit. And you can find out more about that at my website, adivamedicinewoman.com. All right. Then today we have our fabulous, fabulous presenter and featured guest, Dr. Julissa Hernandez. And she is here to talk with us about her text, the one that we are referencing in our study group, the Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. Dr. Julissa is a vet in this business. It's hard to believe when you see her that she's been practicing for over 20 years, but it's true. And she has a 100% success rate so far inside of her fertility work. And I think it is pretty awesome and it's unheard of, particularly because you find mostly inside of fertility work, success rates in the low teens and 20s, definitely not anywhere near 100%. But it's a testament to the power of plant-based medicine and what happens when you really take a holistic approach to anything and say, I'm going to let this body and I'm going to let nature do what it's going to do and support it. It's not as if she's magical, as it were, but what she is gifted in is being able to support us in helping our bodies find the space and be able to heal. So I love it. I'm happy to have her here with me. I'm so appreciative for her being a yes to participating in the fertility family. So without further ado, we can stop with the slides and we'll bring in our awesome guest, Dr. Julissa. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I'm so honored to be here with you again, Kania. Thank you for having me.
Yay! And so I have a quick question. So are you a piano player? Because I see the beautiful piano.
Yes, you found me out. Yes, I started at age 5. Yes.
Awesome. I grew up playing classical piano as well. So I have a soft spot. I love the piano and I actually I love classical music, but in particular piano music. It's very soothing to me.
Yes, I agree. I'm all classical myself. I can't really do all the modern stuff. I'm all of the Haydn, Clementi, Beethoven, and all of that. So, but thank you for noticing. Yes, this is my other baby.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So this week, you guys, this week, what we're talking about, or this month, because I have Dr. Julissa with us once a month, and we're going through the table of contents of the text. But what's really great about the book is you don't actually have to go through it chronologically. So if what happens is you pick up a copy of the book, okay, and you're going through the sections and there's something that jumps out at you, you can start right there. Now, for the intensive purposes of being logical and, having a way to move through this, we've done our suggested reading inside the group. And so we're taking it in sections. But if you get the book, this is not like a novel. So if there's something specific that you're dealing with, you might want to jump right there and read that section. But it's also, I implore you to read the entire text, because it all does, however, work together. So you can jump around, but eventually you want to get through everything, because there would be some things you may not even think about that get covered. And I know for me, some things popped up in reading the sections for this, for today, which are, so today we're talking about how your thoughts and emotions impact fertility. Hormonal imbalances can interfere and even prevent conception. And then how circulation, no, we're not doing circulation today.
Medication.
Oh, and medications that hinder fertility. So those are our sections for today. And so, all right, so we're going to get into it. And so with the book, in case people don't know, you can get it digitally. So I've been reading it on my tablet, and then I also have the hard copy, which basically means I can do my reading wherever I am. And that was my idea behind this. If I have it in both places, I have this one by my bed, and then I have the tablet with me all the time. So if I have some time when I'm out in the streets, I can pick it up and get my reading done. So I'm just getting into, okay, medications. Woo. All right. So what's interesting to me about this is that there's some surprising, well, it's not, yeah, we'll say it's surprising, because if you're not into this world, you would be surprised, right? Yes. Some basic things that people probably take and don't even think twice about, that are impacting, that can impact the fertility. So and then you talk about this one supplement that's pretty powerful, mind you, that can make a difference. But I wanted to just talk in general a little bit, because I have some more specific questions we'll get into. But just in general, let's just talk about the NSAIDs, the over-the-counter painkillers, because there's a lot of other things that you talk about in this section that I want people to read, even as it relates to prescription medication. Right. But let's just talk about painkillers, things that we take and have been taking, like, I'll just take some ibuprofen, I'll just take some acetaminophen, no big deal, I'll take some aspirin. Oh my goodness, what do you want? Like, this is like what area I'm like, this is major. This is major.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I found in my practice and talking to my female patients that so many, and I'm sure that many of them that are listening to this can resonate with that every month on their period, they're popping painkillers like crazy, because they're having issues with cramping, because they're having severe pain, because they're getting migraines and severe headaches and aches and pains and lower back pain, whatever the discomforts are, where there are close to almost 200 symptoms as far as PMS and menstrual discomforts go. And the problem is that when a woman is intaking those types of things, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and so on, they have no idea that they're risking themselves to a challenge called luteinized unruptured follicle syndrome. And what a lot of women don't know is, from taking that Motrin, taking that Advil, taking all those painkillers every single month, month after month, year after year, for years on end, is that they're causing themselves to have an unfortunate problem, an unfortunate condition in which their egg is never released for conception. So I've had women that tell me, but my doctor tells me that I produce eggs, that I have enough eggs. Well, if we're not releasing them, there's no way that you can really become pregnant. The sperm is not going to find anything to penetrate and help, to cause conception. So that was a challenge there. And because I break it down to these all of these little things that are really not taken into consideration, I was honored when, my publicist, I came with completely different topics to write a book with. I came with top 10 health challenges that I've treated in the past 20 years. And of those top 10, they chose this one topic when I said, yes, I have a 100% success rate helping couples conceive. And they just put the brakes on and said, oh, excuse me, wait a minute. So I was honored when they told me to write a book on this one subject. So hopefully there are 9 more books to come on the other subjects I wanted to touch upon. But this was something that caught their eye, and I was honored. And it's something that I do on a constant basis because I really try to focus on the little things that are not looked at. Yes, I know many women and men get a lot of tests done. They get sperm count done. They get motility checks on the sperm. The woman gets checked for, blocked fallopian tubes and so on. But little things like this, like not taking into consideration that for 15, 20 years, she's been taking painkillers every single month. It's not, you hear it too often that they're the biggest, the biggest purchasers of Advil and things like that. And so it's not taken into consideration, and I needed to detail that very well there. And I give the story of a patient there, and in all the chapters you'll all find in my book, I give you examples of, and the names were changed, and these patients were actually spoken to and told about the book, and we reiterated their stories again. Names are changed, but I give stories to back up each one of the cases where we handled that and they became pregnant. So yeah.
Awesome. Because for me, that's kind of amazing. Like, wow. Something so simple. And I want to just add this in because on a personal level, so today is March 21st. Yesterday was my sister's birthday. My sister has transitioned, and she did so in 2013, a bit unexpectedly. It was her 40th. She turned 40 in 2013 in March, and by October of that year, she transitioned. My sister had been diagnosed with lupus at the age of 16. But my sister, from the moment she started her cycle, was one of those women who had very painful cycles. They were almost debilitating. And she took ibuprofen like it was candy. I remember she would just take, and it would just be like, and I on the other hand, didn't have that experience. We both started our cycle at 12. She's 3 years my senior. And she would be like, I don't understand how it's possible for you to be running around, jumping when you're on your cycle, because for her, watching her was always a little nervous because I'd be like, whoa, it's like this period thing can be kind of scary. Whereas I never really heard my mom have that conversation one way or another. So I had kind of these different examples of what your cycle might be like. But what's important for me to put in here, because this ties into one of the sections of the book we're going to get into, my sister was molested and sexually assaulted when she was just starting her transition. So when she hit puberty, and unfortunately was assaulted by some young men while she was away at camp. Now I know, right, thank you. And this is one of the reasons I got into the emotional side of the work that I do, is that all of that makes a difference in how we relate to our bodies, right? And so if the thing that had them choose to attack her is the fact that because she developed very early, so she was very busty and she had hips and she had the cakes and, this like beautiful idea of woman. Like it was just like, oh, right. I remember always being so like, my girls are like, I was like the little bottle and she was like the Coke bottle. And I remember always being like, wow, I want to be really curvaceous. But I was the beanpole at the time. And so we had this different experience. And she was taking all these painkillers. And by the time my sister reached her mid-30s, she experienced kidney failure. And one of the things they talked about, we know that our kidneys, for example, as you talk about the different things that our bodies do related to emotions, but also as it relates to medications, filtering things out. Well, we filter toxins out of our body through our kidney, our liver, like all these are detoxifying organs. And if we're bombarding ourselves with these medications, well, one of the things that I know led to her kidney failure, and they'll tell you, liver damage in particular, as well as kidney damage, is taking a lot of over-the-counter medicines. Yep. So what's painkillers, excuse me. So it's very strange to me that if we know it can impact the body in that way, why don't we have this conversation about how it can impact us around fertility? And then why don't more people even know about that? It can be a little frustrating, the amount of education we need to do in order to not just help people around fertility, but I would just say general health and wellness.
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
It's like sometimes I'll be totally honest, I feel a bit overwhelmed with the work. I'm like, oh my gosh, how
It
is
can
it
be.
possible to get it
Yeah.
all done? Is it possible? And the answer is yes, it is. Because it starts with something as simple as this. It starts simply. So just as people, if you're watching, I want you to get, even if it's not around fertility, I want you to really think about what are some other ways I can manage. So let's talk about those. Someone's having menstrual pain, if someone's experiencing migraines. You could just talk a little bit about what are some of the alternatives they can do. You go, like, guys, you got to get the book because all of this is outlined in there. My goal is really have questions that aren't covered in the book, which is kind of hard because it's so comprehensive. But let's just talk about, in terms of, because we talked about eating to be fertile, what are some things someone could do dietary that you could think of to help minimize any sort of pain, discomfort during their cycle, to help minimize inflammation in the body, which is really the source of all of that? If you were to say some things that they could take on, what would you say around that? Like that link to diet and inflammation and infertility.
Wonderful, wonderful questions. There are a number of things, and I want to, as I share that, I want to touch upon what you mentioned about your sister then suffering from kidney failure and then having challenges with her liver. So we know that the kidney is obviously one of those filters, the liver being the chemical plant of the body. In my book, I detail this severe and immense focus that must be had on kidney health. Because what Chinese medicine teaches us is that the kidneys are the residents of the loins. In Chinese medicine, whenever anyone, man or woman, has challenges with fertility, Kania, the focus is directly on the kidneys and then other organs, but it begins there. And so if your sister was also experiencing those challenges with fertility, the fact that the kidneys were so affected from the overdosing of the NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs and painkillers over the counter, OTC painkillers, the over-the-counter ones, then most definitely that was a reason why. If we go to the liver, that is the secondary organ that I detail very much in my book as well. So I focus severely, as you know, on these two major organs there, as far as what Chinese medicine teaches us as well. The liver is the filter of fat, the filter of blood, but it's the filter of hormones also. And so if a woman doesn't have balanced hormones, progesterone, estrogen, man doesn't have balanced hormones, testosterone levels, and so on, the liver is one of those another areas of focus. So unfortunately, and my condolences to you, I'm so sorry for your loss. The fact that your sister had those challenges in those both areas gives us a huge indication as to why she had challenges there as well. Touching upon also, before I go into what other alternatives one can do, the unfortunate events that happened to her, as far as being assaulted, uh, subconsciously causes one, and I've worked with this many times before, causes one to really feel that their reproductive system is always in pain. And so that pain that she felt during that unfortunate moment is something that she feels she has to deal with almost every week. So that's why that severe pain can also set in subconsciously because of the emotions of what she was going through in that trauma, the trauma itself causing also part of the pain that she was dealing with, um, and other feelings that I'm sure that you saw within her during that time that she was with you in her years of adolescence and growing into womanhood. Now, I do detail already in the book some of the herbal therapies that I recommend. I recommend combinations of everything from grapeseed extract to help with inflammation to certain herbal therapies as well. So when you say foods, I consider obviously herbs and roots food. So for me, that's what I would bring in. Obviously, I do detail also in my book a certain list of foods that a woman should, and men, should intake to increase fertility as well, and also even during the time of carrying term, the 9 months so she's carrying to term. But there are foods, there are herbs, there are roots there that I recommend for that. And some of my favorite, as far as inflammation is concerned, is the grapeseed extract, and bringing in herbal therapies like the female comfort you mentioned and so on. That's like the famous one as well that I love to use. But all of that is detailed there, especially in the glossary. I go into detail about what exactly are the distinct properties and benefits of each one of those herbal therapies. So.
All right, awesome, awesome. All right, so medications, you guys, in the text, I mean, she goes through cholesterol meds, like all sorts of, again, in how medications can impact fertility, but more than just telling you about that they have it, there's a solution. And so it's really a matter of choosing to take it on and do it. And at a minimum, consider if you take this on, you're gonna see you're gonna see your health and wellness improve by taking on a wellness lifestyle. And again, like I said, we're talking about on this timeline, starting a good year out before you're even talking about conceiving, so that if there are some challenges you're dealing with, that will resolve itself if you transform your lifestyle.
Agreed.
So it's so sometimes like, okay, I want to get pregnant. What do I do right now to get pregnant? Well, the best thing you can do to get pregnant, I would say, is really begin to heal your life overall. So we're going to shift into our next section. So I'll leave that with, when you leave this section, she lists everything out so clearly. Dr. Julissa, I have been promoting your book all over the place.
Oh,
I know. I'm in several fertility support groups. And the ladies, many people are interested in a natural approach. They are. And the question they always, well, what do I take? Where do I go? And I'm like, ladies, there's a whole book that outlines this. And they're like, well, I'm like, I promise. Like it's easy. It does not complicate it. And you can run all over. You can do a lot of things. I wanted to ask you about a specific herb, but we're going to get to that. I'm going to get through these sections, and then we're going to talk a little bit. So we talked about how your thoughts and emotions impact fertility.
Yes.
You guys, all right. So fertility is simply another health concern. And although this is a fertility family, we can talk about the impact of emotions on almost any aspect of your body, because almost every disease, chronic disease in particular, can be tied back to an emotional root. And how it can be tied back can be something as kind of complex, or we'll say as, I overeat, right? And I'm now obese. And the result of me being obese could be a litany of health concerns, right? Directly tied to obesity, health concern.
Yes.
But if we go back past just obesity creates the health concern, the question becomes, why does one overeat? And usually when we get to why one overeats, it's something emotional.
Very true.
We can talk about addiction. And we can talk about how, if you're, one of the things, of course, well, I shouldn't say of course, one of the things you're going to do if you're getting yourself ready to have a baby is you're going to cut off drinking and smoking and some of the things we already know can compromise our health. But what are the people who have trouble doing that because they have an addiction? Right. Well, most addictions have their source in some sort of emotional trauma. It's being used as a coping mechanism. And so if you try to, as I say, willpower it away, for some people that really works, but it takes a lot of vigilance. And then when some people stop smoking and they end up taking up another addiction because they haven't dealt with the root of the issue. So this portion of the book is so powerful, because if you're able to deal with the trapped emotions that are driving whatever your illness or disease, or in this case, what would look like a fertility challenge, again, you're going to see a lot of the other health concerns that you've been dealing with start to go away, because you're not going to crave it, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really, it's very powerful. And in this case, when she talks about, again, the kidneys being the seat of the loins, and in particular for me, when we're talking about, I didn't put my notes up, my notes. I'll get to that. But I was thinking about the ovaries in particular. Well, let's just talking about emotion, the emotional barriers. Let me find it. It's
Mm-hmm.
in here. I use so what I do when I'm reading the book, you guys. I have like a specific notes. I'm a nerd. I take notes, so I have notes. But
I love
I
it.
didn't.
I
I
love
usually
that.
bring.
Ask away. I love it.
Oh, well, I'll just make it personal. And while you're speaking, I'll pull up the thoughts I had when reading it. So for
Okay.
me, I was dealing with a lot of grief. And so I know at the root and stressed out, being a chronic overachiever. And for me, it goes way back, we could say almost 30 years to, I was 12. I remember this transition in life. My mom was getting sick. We're going through puberty. I was a year ahead of myself in school, but being a glamazon in the making, I was like the tallest kid in the class, but developmentally, mentally and emotionally behind, and finding myself kind of outside, right, of the of things. And it was a weird experience because prior to that, it always kind of been in the mix. So I remember things being very challenging. And when my mom was getting sick and things were happening mentally with her, it was very stressful. Now, how I chose to deal with that is I became like really good. This is the best way I can describe it. And I became an overachiever and kept myself running, running, running. Like my addiction is like projects and activities because I feel good when I'm accomplishing stuff. And that was my way to kind of block out the stressors of my life. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is that, particularly for me as a woman running full throttle all the time, I really burned out. I burned myself out. And I hit the wall in my early 30s. And I've been on the recovery trail. Well, one, I had to figure out what was wrong with me. And there wasn't a lot that the doctors could tell me. But what was ultimately there is I started working with naturopathic doctors and naturopathic doctors who were in the spiritual realm. Because a lot of the times you can deal with an ND, and that's why I like you have this portion in the book, who still talks mostly about body systems and herbs, but they don't talk about the emotional side of this. And I can take all the supplements and things I want, but if I'm still not dealing with the cause, I'm going to have issues in my body. So I was
Yeah.
dealing with unexpressed grief. And then I also realized I had a lot of anger. Ooh. And so I was dealing with anger. And for me, this showed up in my skin and it showed up in my digestive tract. And one of the concerns for me is, wow, what if this shows up for me inside of my quest to conceive? And so as I'm reading the text, I'm like, well, what do I need to do? Because I have a little nervousness around this. So
Okay. Well, we're gonna help you. Don't worry about it.
okay. So this is like I'm thinking emotions, but I'm like, man, what if my emotional state, what if my baby fabulous is held up because I have some stuff still to work out?
Right. Yes. 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 I get it. No problem.
Okay. Okay. So if someone's dealing with fertility challenges, and one of the things I'm working on for the group is finding a therapist. Have you ever recommended they go into therapy, or do you find that the exercises in the book tend to be comprehensive enough?
I already work with them in that realm of overcoming and us tackling the root cause, the emotional root cause that tends to turn on like a light switch, a challenge in a specific organ or a body system. If they're open to wanting to go and speak to a therapist, absolutely, I will support what truly my patients and clients desire to do. I just tell them that if they're going to do that, please let it not be the type of sessions that I've heard from some patients in the past where they're constantly repeating the negative things that have happened to them. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that there's true healing in constantly repeating the negative. If we're moving forward and if you feel you're moving forward, great. But I have to work on that. I can't, if I don't work with the root cause, that turned on the anger that that woman had towards finding out that her father cheated on her mother when she was just a teenager. And she's been carrying all of that anger with her and carrying that through relationships with men and carrying that into her new marriage now, and now wants to have a baby and she can't let that go. And I see that there are imbalances of the liver, and the liver is the one that's related to anger, and we're having problems conceiving. And she's gone a year and a half after 3 years of marriage trying to have a baby, and we still haven't had one. I have to go back to the anger that she had with daddy when she was a teenager.
So, and the reason I'm asking the question, because I've had people say, well, I'm in therapy, so therefore, I don't need this. But what you pointed to was that sometimes there's a difference between traditional, let's say, therapy and then healing type of emotional work. One of the things I love is inside of the text, Dr. Julissa gives us a very specific exercise we can do. And the exercise is actually one that I was trained in as I was beginning my ministerial training about how to deal with emotional challenges. And so I want you guys, so we want you to get the book, but it's a very simple exercise. But it's not to say that therapy doesn't work, because I actually am in therapy. And part of the reason I'm in therapy is I realized there are some things that I wasn't present to that were still there. And I found that in therapy, I've got things that are coming up. But the limitation I have found, I'll just say in my journey, has been that most therapy to me is a resolution oriented. So I'm like, thank you, I got that. And then I go and I apply some of the other practices so that I can process that. Or, for example, to even help me bring things up, definitely my meditation and my prayer work has even directed me to certain things. Like I actually am working with an awesome therapist who uses essential oil therapy. She's pretty non-traditional. And so I definitely know I was spirit led to her. But even also things such as the flower essences and how those can help with emotional healing. You guys are essential oil therapies and how they can help. So there's so many things that can be done naturally to help one deal with emotional trauma, but it has to be dealt with if we're going to carry and conceive, or conceive and carry, because I've met women who are getting pregnant, and we talked about this in last week's section a little bit, how some people are getting pregnant, but they're not staying pregnant. Yes, and so we're looking at, again, the whole aspect of this. One of the things you talked about was that our ovaries can be affected by blocking feelings towards others. And I'm a person who's kind of learned to sometimes keep people at a distance because of this fear of, for me, it's been mostly of loss, but it's also been of the feeling of rejection. And so, I share this personally because that's something that I'm having to work with. If my ovaries can be affected because I'm like going to block myself and protect myself, how am I going to be able to welcome in this new baby? And so I'm having to push through my fears and my barriers and a lot of the things I put in place to protect myself, because my desire to have baby fabulous supersedes my concerns about, well, what if, or and about the what ifs. And so it's something for us to think about. And I wanted to just ask you, because I don't know if this was in the text, but do you have any knowledge or thoughts about the tapping, EFT, as a modality to help with emotional healing?
I have not used that. So in answer to your question with regards to overcoming those emotional challenges, the holding on to with too much fervor of negative emotions, the way that I detail it there in the book, if I'm dealing and working with someone that is holding on to severe anger and rage, if they're holding on to unresolved forgiveness towards another or others, if I'm helping someone that is dealing with severe embedded fear challenges. And yes, I understand the therapy is talking things out and doing so, and the mind is absolutely very powerful. What we know within, for example, Chinese medicine is that a lot of these specific emotions, and I detail it there in the book, are very much related to specific organs and systems. So the anger, I'm going to work and strengthen the liver in that person. If I'm dealing with unresolved forgiveness and fear, again, the residents of the loins, I have to move towards strengthening, nourishing, building, and balancing the kidneys to create fertility in that man or woman. If I'm working with a woman that has challenges with PCOS, ovarian cysts, then I'm pretty sure with my hunch that she's dealing with what you mentioned a moment ago, that unconsciousness emotion, building up a wall and blocking her feelings or her feelings. And if I'm dealing with a man that has testicular problems, it's the same in him. So with women, the ovaries, testicle in the man, blocking emotions and not expressing when you've wanted to go and hug someone, say I love you, but you hold back because you really don't want to show that person that you really care that much. It's hurting you, not them. And so that blockage of emotion, the body is so intelligent that when you hold on to that and it's in the subconscious and you're constantly building up that wall and blocking your feelings, the body then becomes very intelligent and also wants to create a wall that now turns into cysts and tumors and abnormal cells and all that stuff that the body creates to prevent anyone from actually penetrating and getting to the very you. And we need to bring that wall down. And I do that by even strengthening, just by focusing on those specific organs that I know are having those challenges there. Those emotions dissipate, they dwindle away, they start to disappear very easily when you focus on the organ and system of weakness and systems that are related to that specific negative emotion that they're harboring for years and years. We're human. We're going to feel all types of emotions. The challenge is not harboring and holding on to those negative emotions for prolonged periods of time. You feel anger, you feel discomfort, you feel fear, feel your feelings, let it go. It's so important to do that. They have no idea how much it affects their bodies. And that as a Taoist and as one that practices Taoist practices, Buddhist practices, and raised as a Catholic, I'm very spiritual in my approach with helping my patients. And I tried to share that also in the book because it can't just be so technical, just body parts and organs. I have to work on the emotional part too. And I feel that's one of the aspects that has helped me be so successful in helping the couples. We're talking about people crying in the office almost every day. So yeah.
I want to just touch on this because it's an area that I recently became more aware of. And this is the transgenerational trauma and the trauma and things that we carry in us from past generations. Um, have you looked at that, or do you have any thoughts about how, even if it's not your own pain, that you might be carrying some things? Because this has been shown, even scientifically, that we can carry trauma in our DNA. And so, even if someone's not aware, I would posit that if someone's not aware of some kind of specific trauma, they're like, well, I can't think of anything. Could there be something that they're not even present to in their current life that they could be carrying as a result of ancestral pain that this kind of work could also impact? So why it's important to look at it, even if you don't think you have anything, there could be something else there.
Yes, absolutely, 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 yes. Which is why with every couple, patient, client that comes to me, if I have a couple that has followed through with this journey with me and followed through with my steps, we're going to get you pregnant. As long as she has a period and we have a great candidate, we're good. So in that aspect, I love what you've just said. A woman that I was recently, I'm recently now working with. She was born with kind of club feet, broken ankles. Okay, she was born that way. And we know within, for example, Chinese medicine. And so they had to break her ankles when she was born, break her ankles, yes, put her ankles back into place, her feet into place, put braces on her when she was born as a little baby, And she walks great now. Is a little bit bow-legged, obviously because of that, but she walks straight and everything. But she questioned me and asked me, why was I born that way? A lot of people question that, and then the reason is, and that is why it's so important for you to work on balancing yourselves before having baby, so that you can let go all of these things and the house is clear and ready to receive baby, and not holding on to certain burdens and resentments. I asked her, because we know in Chinese medicine that the kidneys are the realm of also the health of the structural system, bones, joints, and so on. So I asked her, when your mom was pregnant with you, what traumatic event did she deal with that was something traumatic in which she was dealing with unresolved forgiveness? Who could she not forgive while she was pregnant with you? And it was dad, who had another woman. And that was something that, without her knowing it, obviously, in the womb, she transferred that unresolved forgiveness, which we already know is a kidney challenge. If kidneys are weakened, it can affect structural system, bones, it can affect the reproductive system. So that helped her to understand then why. And that's what I know was passed on to her, and so on. So, and it's something that we're working with now with her, with unresolved forgiveness challenges and so on. So yes, that absolutely can be passed on. A child that is born diabetic has been passed on grief from the parent. And I immediately start questioning that. What was mom or dad going through with grief, the time that you were conceived? Do you know, have you heard any stories? And it's amazing, the reference and the correlation of how those things are passed on. So what you are doing here with this Fertility Family Live, what you are doing to prepare yourself to let go of all these things, so that all these ghosts and subconscious feelings that are negative and affecting you, you can let go of. All of you listening out there, work on that. Give yourself 90 days to have your cells do a turnaround, and then work on having that baby. But balance yourselves first and do that, so that the house is clear and ready to receive baby without any burdens. It's amazing.
Yay! Baby, baby, baby.
Yeah.
All right. We talk about the last section, of course, we're talking about hormonal imbalances. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty straightforward concept, because we know about, well, we don't know. Most people who are on the journey to fertility
Yes.
have looked at hormones. They check for hormonal levels and things of that sort. So it's not new information. But what I would say for people, what's new here in our text is a way to approach it holistically. And this is important. I actually was at a symposium earlier this week talking about the decriminalization of marijuana. And on the flip side, also talking about the legalization of marijuana, particularly medicinally. And so there was a whole conversation about, well, we could make it legal medicinally, but not decriminalize it. Just bear with me. But one of the things I pointed to when I stood up, because I'm a vocal person, was one, there's still a disparity in our country around access to conventional health care. Okay. For me, herbal medicine is so powerful because in many ways it's accessible to anyone. I can go to a health food store currently and pick up everything you've listed in this text, right? And if I have no health insurance, I can do this. If I have health insurance, I can do this. As we start to see, and cannabis is a very powerful herb, as are there some other very powerful herbs out there. And it has a lot of uses that could be, and it can be, across the board, inflammation, mood, it's across the board. And so we talked about the idea of having an alternative to traditional healthcare inside of herbal medicine. But just like there's this move to want to, okay, we'll legalize cannabis, but only in medicinal settings, and then the gateways still become our MDs. Keeping our eye, though, on the same kind of things in herbal medicine, because then there's this slow, but I would say a slow move to want to start to regulate herbal medicine But what you're pointing to here is that even if someone, to me, what's so powerful about this is that my light is very bright, is that even if you don't have health care, if you don't have access to a fertility clinic, if you don't have the financial resources to go through rounds of IVF and hormonal balancing drugs and things, you can get all of that resolved naturally. That's what's powerful here. So if you know that something you're dealing with might be a hormonal imbalance and you're not loving the side effects or sometimes even the outcome of some of the traditional therapies, what's outlined here and what Dr. Julissa has gifted us with is expert instruction on how we can do this, have an alternative to it. But what I wanted to ask you is that are there any contraindications that you know about if someone decides to follow the instructions here, but they're also taking a course of a more traditional or let's say allopathic or a more I don't know, Western medical approach, so they're in the middle of these hormone injections or these different things that they do inside of IVF and these kind of treatments, but they also are taking this on. Do you know of any contraindications? Is it safe for them to do this? Is it complementary or is it just alternative?
It is complementary, absolutely complementary. So if they did decide that they wanted to continue some conventional methods, they could. This would only enhance. However, I get all of those patients that have been, I get those. Those are usually the ones that tend to come to me because the first route is to start with a fertility clinic. So I would say the majority of my patients tend to be those that have been through the IVF, where the woman is constantly injecting herself and it's painful and it's traumatic. I even share the story there of a couple who was going through that, and the husband just didn't want her to see her going through that pain any longer after failed attempt and after failed attempt. So I'm usually the second choice. Usually the thought of going natural with it, because many times women are the ones that tend to take the helm when it comes to this, and they start doing research and they start looking at different ways, and when the money is starting to run out and they can't keep up with having another fourth try or fifth try, those are the patients that I tend to get. I have to tell you that, where they feel that trauma from trying in that aspect, and it's painful, and the hormone injections are causing her to go through all kinds of mood swings, and now she's snapping at her husband, and they're arguing more, and this whole baby journey is now just horrible for them. So I get all of those. Going back to what you were saying about cannabis, I recommend that everyone read my book because I do state there some of the challenges of intaking something like that. Even though it is an herb, the challenge is the way it's cultivated. The challenge is the way that some of them are harvested or produced or mass produced, whatever it may be. I had a 6-week program on my radio show where I was talking about addictions, and I discussed there the challenges of, for example, medical marijuana and how they've not been able to offset the side effects. They've not been able to do anything about the side effects that come with taking even medical marijuana. So for those that feel, oh, it's an herb, and you are trying to conceive, I do not recommend it. You'll find there in my book, I give you a lot of studies and information of how it affects men specifically also, and how it affects the pituitary gland and the hypothalamus with hormone production and so on. So please do take that into account. I give research after study after research after study, more than you can imagine, everything from Journal of Medicine to, New England Journal of Medicine and so on. So I share a lot of that information there. So take that into account.
So you guys, Dr. Julissa is telling you inside of your fertility journey,
yes,
MJ is not your friend.
No, it is not.
Even if
I
it's
even share
medicinal.
there. Well, I even share the story there. They'll find the story there of a couple. She was older than him. She there was no reason why she could not conceive. Okay, you'll find the story there.
I
She was
remember.
told by
Yeah.
her doctors there's no reason why she couldn't conceive. You read that part, right? And she then confided with me in another session that we had without him there that she feels it's the fact that he's been smoking since he was 17.
Mm.
And I discussed, yes, I talked with him. And he said, I'll make a sacrifice and I'll stop for 90 days until we get pregnant. And when he stopped, they got pregnant and he went right back to, I mean, what are you going to do? But obviously, just think of that. If it makes a person lax and so on and so forth, the sperm mobility and motility is not the same. Those little fishies are not going to be able to be strong enough to penetrate that egg the way they should. It's so common sense. Getting pregnant is really not that technical. It's so natural, and I make it so easy and kind of, common sense that it's a fun journey. So yeah, let's do it naturally.
It's a 1, 2, 3. This is the 1, 2, 3 to pregnancy. There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Mm.
so and so but that's to say one of the questions they say, well, can I do this if I'm taking if I'm also working with a doctor? And so I'm glad you answered that as a yes. This is complementary. It's not alternative. If you're choosing,
It is alternative too, because again,
right,
I've
but
had those that discontinue using
mhm.
conventional
Well, it can be
method
out.
and
But
then find
where I was just asking, people feel like sometimes I get the either or, and I'm
Oh,
like, I'm not telling you that you have to stop seeing your doctor. That's not what we're
right,
advocating. You can.
right.
I'm choosing it as an alternative personally because that's personally. But if you're someone who's currently on a more traditional, what's that? I'm still working the language I want to use. This,
Conventional
yeah,
allopathic.
conventional. Thank you. This
Yeah.
is not going to. It's not contraindicated. You won't be in danger if you decide to take this path on, and you might most likely. I would think you would probably see results a lot faster. So,
Agreed.
but just to allay those concerns, we have had some people ask about that.
Okay.
So for me, so we'll end today with just this.
Yeah.
Because as I'm on this journey, I've been charting my cycle most for a long time, but what I've noticed in the past couple of months, all of a sudden my cycle is being a little bit erratic. Um, and so I'm like, I'm freaking out. So my 42nd birthday, you guys, was Friday. So I'm 42 and fabulous. But then
Happy
I'm like, what
birthday.
is going Thank you. What is going on with my body? Is it stress? Should I be worried? Do you have any I'm trying not to freak out, but it's there for me because I'm like within my last 3 cycles have all happened probably within 2.5 to 3 weeks. I'm like, what's going on? And like I said, since I've been like really on my this particular journey just for feminine health before it was even about having a baby, I started my herbal regimen. I switched to my non-toxic pads. I hadn't been experiencing any breast tenderness, the bloating, cramps, none of that. Now I'm still not having any cramps or anything, but my cycle's not even here, and I'm experiencing the tenderness. I'm bloated. I'm like, what's going on? I'm nervous. Any thoughts?
I do feel that stress has something to do with that, knowing what you're doing, and so much work that you're doing, and that you're getting closer and closer to uh, doing the donor. Is that the case, right?
Yes,
That,
yes.
yes, I definitely
Like I'm
feel that that's
researching. I'm
part of that.
on websites. Like, oh my gosh, it's getting real.
Yes, yes. So that's part of that. I really do feel that that's part of it. Uh, Increase, and I do this very much when with patients when maybe we've begun it. I had one woman whose period actually stopped because she was getting closer to that time, and it was something very strange, and we got it going again. You're already using the female comfort, for example, and I recommend doing that in higher dosages to balance things out. And prayer and meditation, anything that's going to ground you and center you. Okay. Anything that is going to do that, because I do feel that it's slightly stress induced, and anything can happen to the body because the mind is just really dominating it. If you're stressing, that's going to happen. Don't think it's because of your age and because you're getting closer to your 42nd birthday. I'm older than you. So there's no reason why we can't be all, normal and feeling great and wonderful, continue with your non-chemical pads and so on. And increase, do it in higher dosages. I don't know how many you're taking a day of your female formula, but I would recommend going to a higher dosage of 5 and 5, 10 daily, to really balance things out and really increase your fertility chances then. And just anything that's going to ground you and help you just feel at
Right.
ease and just makes you feel peaceful and calm. The good thing is we just entered an Earth Dog year and you've never seen this before. You won't see it again for another 60 years. And in general, this year is one of peace and calm. So you should be feeling that energy specifically after February 16th, when that new energy ushered in. So it'll be easier for you to center yourself and ground yourself. Certain colors can also do that. I believe in that as well as part of Chinese medicine. So more yellows and greens and earth tones will really help you out.
Okay.
Yeah, greens and yes, and yellows. And I always, have my touches of greens and all this time of year, especially the month of March. So start doing that and you'll start feeling that more.
All right. Yay.
Okay. Aw, don't worry. We'll talk on camera too if you want, honey. I know. Don't worry. And I'm coming to the baby shower. Remember that on the first invite.
Oh my goodness, you guys, this is real. And oh my gosh. She talked
Oh.
about stress. I was at home visiting my dad. My dad he actually turned 75 in 3 days. So in my family, my mother, when she was having her babies, she wanted us to be born on our dad's birthday. That's March 24th. And my sister was born on the 20th, as I shared, and then I was born on the 16th. So I'm definitely a product of family planning and a woman who was like, this shall be. She used her method of birth control was primarily the rhythm method, and she was an herbalist. I was raised on herbs and spices, and there was a tea for everything. Like there was a tea for everything in my house. We very rarely went to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And dealt with a lot of those things. But what we didn't know is so much about stress and just how important the taking care of our emotional well-being is as it relates to our physical health and well-being. Um, and so I get it. My dad was scheduled for surgery. I was in Detroit to support him. There's a whole conversation we have around medical advocacy and our concerns about getting into the medical system and not coming out alive. And so he really didn't want to have the surgery. And we say thanks to herbal medicine because he was scheduled. And I got him on a regimen of products and some lifestyle changes a good month before that surgery was scheduled. My dad did not have to have the surgery. And so all the concern that we both had up until that point, no surgery.
Amen.
Feels great. And he's like, oh my gosh, I feel wonderful. And so he's finally really a believer. And he's like, Kania, your stuff works. Oh my gosh. so, so that was certainly something that was there. And perhaps I got to release it because I was very nervous.
Such a blessing. Go, congratulations.
All right. Well, Dr. Julissa, before we complete, is there anything else you would just like to share around any of those sections of the book or anything else that may be on your heart to share?
Know that I did everything in my power to make sure that this labor of love that you have before you, my book, The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility, I did everything in my power to make sure that I touched upon what you normally don't hear about, what you normally don't even think of focusing on when it comes to trying to conceive, and that it is possible to do it through a more natural approach, a naturopathic approach. Having babies has been since the beginning of time. I mean, it's really not as complex as maybe conventional medicine tries to make it. It's really more than anything, and I do state this in the beginning of the book. It's feeding the body what it is missing so that it can heal itself. whether it's from making lifestyle changes to incorporating more relaxing methods to nourishing yourself with certain herbs and foods. Let's do that to help bring that balance so that you can finally achieve the dream of having the baby that you so desire. And I would be honored to be part of that journey. And as I am with you, Kanaya. So thank you all for having me. And I pray that this labor of love helps you achieve that dream.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. All right, you guys, we are at the end of our session for today. This has been the Fertility Family Live. Just a couple of things before we officially complete. One, if you're watching this, we invite you to join the family. We this whole thing exists to help you succeed. Every week we're doing education. We have coaching and we have group support. Um, and if you are not in it alone, you have a greater likelihood to stick with your holistic program and have success. So we invite you to join the fertility family. Um, and then next week, we have up our fabulous womb health specialist, Ajay Wura, who's the proprietress of the Sweet Spot Detox Boutique. And she talks about loving your sweet spot. She specializes in vaginal steams and how we, again, using the same herbs that you'll find Dr. Julissa talks about, it really is simply another method by which you can take these herbs into your body. And it also has many other health and wellness benefits. She has had actually several sweet spot babies, again, from women who were dealing with fertility challenges and took on this holistic womb health practice. And boop, they've got babies now. So join us next week if you've ever had a question about what is this steaming thing and why are we doing it and whatnot. But we'll see you next week. It's been my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you again, Dr. Julissa, for your time and your energy and your willingness to be a support. You are. Until the next time, be well and stay fabulous. Bye.
Blessings. All right. Good night, everyone.